Hi, I'm Eric Mansfield. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and this is Practical Mental Health. So today is an introductory video. I'm just going to give you an idea of who I am and basically, what I'm about with regards to being a therapist. So I have been a mental health therapist for the past 7 years. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I have a master's degree in social work. I see people for a variety of reasons, typically depression and anxiety, and especially trauma. So when I first started out, I was a generalist. I would see pretty much anybody, everybody across the board. However, what I found was that a lot of people that were experiencing depression and anxiety have some past trauma. Not everybody, but that's something that I kind of transformed or transitioned into with regards to my practice. Like, I really do focus a lot on trauma because trauma is trauma. It doesn't have to be full-blown PTSD. There are a lot of different things that you could experience through your life, and it really boils down to how you perceive what happened and whether or not it is sticking with you over the long term. So, having said that, some of the modalities that I have been trained in is cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, client-centered therapy, client-centered specifically for like really honing in on what the client's needs really are in the moment from day to day. We do have goals and various things that we establish in therapy. I do try to follow that as best I can, but sometimes there's a lot of side paths or side roads. I use a strengths-based approach. That could be anything from like basically, what are your strengths? What do you gravitate towards as far as like what comes natural to you? I do a lot of solution-focused therapy, which is a lot of problem solving. That definitely can help with a lot of distress if people learn how to problem solve and are able to solve problems on their own. I do a lot of education. I teach people about what might be going on inside their brain, their body. There's just a lot. And I honestly don't understand why even just the basics of psychology isn't being taught to people in high school. This is all valuable information that everybody I think should learn. So with regards to education, hopefully the idea is that I'm feeding your mind healthy and good information with regards to being able to develop and maintain good mental health throughout the course of your life. I also engage in mental exercising, and that tends to fall into a lot of Socratic questioning. I'm not here to give you all the answers. That is definitely something that you have to determine for yourself with regards to your life path. All I can do is give you directions. And like if you opened up a map to get from point A to point B, you can go right and still find your way to the point of destination. You can go left and still find your way to the point of destination. You can go right up the center. It all depends on like the idea of how long do you want to take, what obstacles might be in your way. Are you going to be able to overcome those obstacles? It's kind of like, if you find yourself on a path and you come across a raging river, but there's no bridge in front of you. But if you look right, you see a bridge. Well, there's a solution. You can turn right and go a little bit further out of your way, but you cross the river. If you look left, there might be another bridge, but it's 2 miles down as opposed to 1 mile to the right. However, having said that, what if your destination is 2 miles downriver, but across? it wouldn't make sense to go right and take the bridge to the right. I mean, even though it's a mile that way and it feels closer, in the long run, it's going to be a longer journey. So that's kind of the idea behind that. Okay, so coping skills. I teach people coping skills all day long. I want to help clients build a toolbox that you have for yourself. It's not about coming to therapy and sitting for an hour and then running through and practicing coping skills or just talking about stuff. I want you to be able to take skills home so that way you can apply them to everyday life circumstances. That is very important. The thing about being a therapist, I have clients that they do seem like long-term clients. They need that support. However, as a therapist, I actually do look forward to the day when clients feel confident and they look at me and go, Mr. Eric, I don't feel like I need you anymore. I'm not going to be insulted by that. That tells me I did my job. I'll look forward to it, actually. But not that I wouldn't push anybody out the door if they're not ready. I do have a lot of clients who they do find benefit coming to sit and just talk and work through problems once a week, once every 2 weeks. Some of them only come once a month, but that's the support that they need. So I'm here for that. Okay, having said that, I am listed on Psychology Today. So if you have any interest in looking me up as a therapist, you can find me there. There is a list of insurances that I do take through the company that I work for right now, WO Behavioral Health. Small company, small organization, but outstanding people, honestly. I wouldn't be there if I didn't like the people that I work for and I work with. So yeah, and the company is growing. They really do have a wonderful vision for the future for a lot of things. I'm not going to get into that right now. Let's see. So, something I didn't mention. And so this is all part of me. I tend to be forgetful as well. Nothing's perfect. With regards to trauma, I am trained in EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. That is definitely a very useful modality for helping people reprocess trauma. I mean, even the most severe trauma. I'm also trained in the rewind technique. So think of EMDR as predominantly American based. Like, it's really prevalent here in the United States. The rewind technique seems to be more prevalent in Europe. However, I have found it to be useful here. I mean, it depends on the trauma and it depends on the person. The rewind technique is guided visualization, and it's really meant for kind of like snippets or snippets of memory, like one-offs, one-time events, that kind of a thing. That's what I've found it really useful for. I am being trained or have gone through the training, but I'm starting to apply brain spotting. My understanding is that that's a very useful tool as well. So I have a lot of tools in my toolbox so that I can help you and give you tools as well. There are some things that have to be done in the office. So when it comes to telehealth, I do not perform EMDR. I do not do the rewind technique or even brain spotting through virtual sessions. I have had too many problems with connectivity, basically. Like, almost every session, our system freezes up. And I can't imagine leaving a client in the middle of a process and then all of a sudden I freeze up and they don't know what to do. So I will not do that through virtual means. So just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming from, just to give you kind of my life story in a nutshell, and there's a lot to it. I'm 56 years old this year, so it's a long story. But I just want to make you aware of certain things so that to let you know that I am aware and I can relate to certain aspects. When I have clients that come in, oftentimes there's a struggle of, how do you know what I'm going through? I don't know what anybody's going through, honestly. I can relate to people based on my own personal experiences. Sometimes it helps for clients to know what my experiences might have been, so that way they feel like I actually can be tuned in to what they may be going through. And I say tuned in loosely in the sense that I don't know how you feel. I don't know what you're going through. You're the only one that knows that. I've had my own experiences. So just to kind of give you an idea, and I'm just going to go through this really quick. I am a child of divorced parents. My parents divorced when I was 5 years old. I know what it feels like to be bounced around like property. I grew up angry. We weren't rich or anything to that effect. I definitely didn't get everything that I wanted, that's for sure. I was always taught that if I wanted something, I had to work for it. I had my first job when I was 15. That was my own doing. I'm not sure that my mother actually pushed me to do that, but all I knew was that I knew that we live in a capitalistic society, and if you want anything, you have to earn the money. And so I went out and earned the money. So there was a lot of depression related to the anger, and I would say that the anger masked the depression. So in some ways that I can relate to people who may be doing that. If you're hyper angry about certain things, there might be a certain level of depression that might be causing that. So that's just something to think about. So I also failed the 8th grade. I slacked off. I should have paid more attention. But that was my epiphany moment when I was younger, of knowing that success does not come without effort, and you have to make the effort depending on how successful you want to be. When I graduated, that's when things really went downhill. I'm not going to get into the details, but I was severely depressed. Didn't know what to do, didn't know where to go. Nobody really actually prepared me for life. And honestly, even though I had a high school diploma, I did not feel prepared at all for life whatsoever. So that was really a kick in the gut. And I didn't have the supports that I felt like I needed. And I don't really think that the people that could have supported me even knew what my needs were, or even how to support me. And I'm not talking about just financial support. I mean, like the emotional and cognitive support, showing me which way to go. Where do I get information? What do I need to do to accomplish this and that? That's the whole purpose for parents and mentors and coaches and teachers. I mean, isn't that what they're supposed to be doing, is preparing young people to be able to function in society and life? So anyway, both my grandparents died within a few years. One of my best friends was in a tragic accident. I was flunking out of school when I was in college. I had my own suicide attempt. It was more of a cry for help, but what I learned from that was it ended up showing me who my friends truly were and who my friends were not, because a lot of people walked away from me. I was actually hoping for people to gravitate towards me and ask me, like, dude, are you okay? Nobody did. Not my own family, nobody. So that was a really tough time. And so what ended up happening is I dropped out of school, and I had a friend that knocked on my door one day, and I was in a moment of desperation. I needed to get away. But that turned into, he knew another person, another friend who was living in the mountains at the time, and they were starting a community kind of a thing. And so I pretty much jumped on board with that. I dropped everything and voluntarily went to the mountains. I was homeless voluntarily for a couple of years. I had to go find myself. And what made it kind of easy was, like, a lot of people are fearful of doing something like that. And I get it, because there's the idea that, hey, if you're homeless and you go out and you don't know where you're going to be, what you're going to do, how are you going to eat, shelter, all that stuff. You could literally die. I was not afraid of death. In some ways, I wanted to die. So that eliminated the fear of what could possibly happen. I really didn't care. But after a few years, or a couple of years, I did find myself, and I felt like I had more direction, and I knew what direction I wanted to go in. So when I tried to come back, the doors were closed. I just could not get back in. I thought I had a safety net, but that safety net wasn't there. It never existed, apparently. I thought it did. But that was when I became involuntarily homeless. And then that's when things got real. And then that's really when I really started feeling the anxiety and the fear of, oh my gosh, what happens if this happens? So eventually, somehow, I found myself in the New Mexico desert in the winter of 1996. And if you've ever been to New Mexico in the wintertime, during the day, it was beautiful weather. I mean, mid-70s. To people who actually live there, that's actually cold. I've met some people that they live there year round. And one day I'm skipping down the road with nothing but shorts to go down to the river to bathe. And one of the locals is wrapped up in a heavy winter coat, yelling at me, going, "Hey boy, don't you know it's wintertime?" I'm like, dude, this is springtime weather for Virginia. Like, it's beautiful out here. Why are you all wrapped up in a coat and sitting next to a bonfire? But I later learned that it gets really, really hot, apparently, in the summertime there. However, having said that, so the nights got very cold. I mean, it was unreal. I've never experienced cold like that. So I actually ended up exploring, and because I was camping, I had been practicing bushcraft and stuff like that. I mean, we call it bushcraft now. I didn't call it that then. It was survival. And I had a tarp. And so I ended up making a lean-to, which was the wrong shelter for that climate. Luckily for me, I had a lot of winter blankets. I had a winter sleeping bag. I had wool clothes. I had clothes that I'd made for myself. And I had enough to stay reasonably warm. And one night it just got bitter, bitter cold. It was so cold I couldn't breathe. I mean, it was just really unbelievably cold. I've never experienced it before or since. That's the night that I honestly believe that I nearly froze to death, but I didn't, because I made the effort to live. I decided I wanted to live. That was the night that, in the back of my mind, I heard this quiet voice say, "If you want to die, just go to sleep." And I made the decision in that moment that I wanted to live. So I fought for my life that night. I don't want to get into too many details about how I did it, but I mean, I pretty much had to open up the sleeping bag, let cold air in, close it, warm it up. I shuffled my feet and my legs, created friction, breathed for as long as I could until the carbon dioxide built up, and then I would open up, let more cold air in, the carbon dioxide out, and I did that for 10 hours. And that was the longest night of my life. But I got through it. The term "good morning sunshine" has a whole different meaning to me. And, I hate to say this, but you can empathize with it, but you're not going to know unless you actually experience something like that. which is kind of the point that I make also when it comes to anything that you may have gone through. There are certain things that it has meaning to you. I can empathize, but I'm not going to know what you went through. But I can sort of relate to certain things based on my experiences. And you can relate also based on your experiences. I know what it feels like to be in deep poverty. I know what it feels like to go days without eating food, not knowing where your next meal is going to come from. I also met a lot of really wonderful people, and I met some pretty messed up people too, which actually increased my desire to understand psychology. And I knew always that I wanted to be in the helping professions. But anyway, eventually I did make it back. I pulled myself out of homelessness, and for a couple of years I worked a job, was not satisfied with it. So then I voluntarily again went back into homelessness to follow a path. But along that path, I didn't stay in the homelessness state. I mean, I actually looked for jobs, and I found myself in construction. And while I was in construction, that really exercised my mind with regards to creativity, problem solving, being able to look at things from a different point of view, thinking outside the box. And quite frankly, I live outside the box. I'll kind of explain that a little bit more later on. But all of that led to an offer. Like, I had to work my butt off to get to where I was. I thought I was going to be resigned to work in construction the rest of my life until an opportunity presented itself. And when that opportunity presented itself, I dove through that door like Superman. Like, I was not going to let that slip by. And the thing is that I honestly do not think that I would be a therapist today if I had not gone through all of the hardship that I went through. And I'm not going to get into comparison about whose hardship is greater than others or anything. Trauma is trauma. Hardship is hardship. Suffering is suffering. Some people may struggle with what one person may call, oh, well, that's nothing. But that person, if that's what they experience, it is everything. It's not just nothing, it's everything. So the idea that there's not going to be any comparison, but I do tend to self-disclose at times in order to help clients understand where I'm coming from and to provide examples. My success did not come without effort. And along this journey, I've learned a lot of things. And that is what I try to share with people as encouragement. Hopefully the idea is that people will be inspired by everything that I say and do. And the thing is that, my life experience has brought me to this point. And quite frankly, I really don't know what's going to happen from here. I hope that it progresses, but at the same time, I tell people everything that I have could crumble. It could be taken away. There's any number of circumstances. I'm not going to get into some of the horror stories that I've heard from people about that happening. All you have to do is look at the political climate in other parts of the world, and you can see people who one day they were sitting and having meals with their family, and the next day they were running for their lives. It happens, unfortunately. I wish it didn't, but it does. So hopefully that's kind of the gist of it. That's sort of my life in a nutshell. I kind of made it short because honestly, I would love to be able to sit and tell the entire story, but I got a time crunch with the videos and all that stuff. So, but I just wanted to let you know, so that way you can kind of get an idea if you feel like I can relate to you, if you are a prospective client and you're looking for a therapist that can potentially and hopefully understand your point of view. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. just gives you a basic overview of who I am. Yeah, so I'm going to end this here. Very short video. I hope you stick around or watch other videos that are coming up. Hopefully, I do hope that you found them useful. So I hope you have a wonderful day. I do wish for you a wonderful life. I love you all. It's a brotherly love. Yeah, all the best to you. Take care.